JDL USA presents Rabbi Nachum Shifren, public speaker, author, and good friend of the late Rabbi Meir Kahana.
Well, we're back again, and it's been another week. It's great everybody's here, and we're all assembled. Just a quick story. Somebody a very religious person once. By the way, what does that mean? I don't know. You tell me. A very righteous person asked the Lubavitch Rabbi once, well, Thanksgiving not really a Jewish holiday. I mean, what? How should our approach be toward Thanksgiving? The Rabbi didn't bat an eyelash. He said, you know what? Hodu, which of course means turkey, also means to be thankful, right? So the Rabbi said, you know what? If that's the case, you should be eating Thanksgiving turkey every day. We have to be thankful. That's the first thing that we see in the liturgy. Every time we go to pray is be thankful. And here's an opportunity that many, many millions of people have. Now, whether they think about it or not, that's another question. But as Jews, we know that being grateful and thankful to God is part of our DNA. So that's a story I thought I'd relate. It's interesting that we heard in the news that apparently there's some sort of a ceasefire or whatever in the north. Question, does anybody really think that's going to last? And two, who's going to guarantee it? Oh, the Lebanese and the United Nations? Interesting. Who would count on that one? How much money would be placed on a bet in Vegas for that kind of a ceasefire to last? It's interesting. Rabbi Kahana talks. There's a chapter in his book Or HaRayon. What is the title in English? The Jewish idea. He talks about war and peace, and the only time that there's real peace is when one side vanquishes the other one. When the other side sees that there's no way that they can ever beat the other side, therefore they lay down their guns and they submit to the demands of the conquerors. We saw that on the aircraft carrier in the Pacific, where the Japanese had a complete surrender. What is a complete surrender? Complete surrender means I tell you what to do and you do it. That's why we beat you in the war. And you have no more weapons to fight us, and you lost, and we control you now. Same thing with the Germans in Europe. The Germans didn't ask for any conditions. Anytime somebody asks for conditions, that means the war's not over yet. One side has to absolutely defeat and completely crush the other side into submission. So when the Hezbollah, when they start saying, well, they should do this, or they have to stay out of this area, or whatever, that's not peace. That's not a ceasefire. They're getting ready for the next round. And indeed, I recall being in Israel 40 years ago, when the same thing happened in Lebanon, in Israel, just like the Americans in Afghanistan, that night they stole out of the country. They left all the tanks, all the heavy artillery, all the guns. They left them there. And, of course, the terrorists took over everything. So this is something to think about. It's amazing how history repeats itself. I mean, we are not, you and I are not, big mavens. We're not Kissingers. We're not Metternich. We're not, Churchill. We're just regular guys, but we see, as Bob Dylan used to say, you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind's blowing. So much for that. I thought I'd throw that out there. Rabbi Kahana, of course, was very unimpressed with everything that the Israeli government did, and that's why they had to get rid of him. It's real simple. Israelis learned from the KGB how to play hardball with their opponents. That's a subject for another time, though. So here we have the Parsha TOLDOT, and it's interesting that there's an amazing concept here that I don't know how much it gets, how much attention it gets by rabbis when they talk about it or whatever. In the Kabbalah, it's definitely mentioned, and in Hasidut, it's definitely mentioned. This idea of Mayim Chaim, that Yitzchak built wells, right, in the Sinai, or I guess it was near Beersheba, and the Philistines back then were putting dirt and just plugging up the wells that Abraham had made. So Yitzchak now is on the scene. He's in charge. He orders all of his servants and friends to pitch in, dig out the wells again. And on the third well, there's something that after unearthing all the sand and whatever else the Philistines put in there to block the well, they went all the way down to the water level. And it said this, they called the well Mayim Chaim, living water. A couple of things about this. We know that Mayim Chaim is very pure. People that back in the day that were somehow they become ritually unclean and were not allowed to be in the holy temple as such. Had to go into such a well where there was water flowing in it, and it was called living water, and that was the metric that was used to figure out which level of purity would be the yardstick back then. Interesting that in Hasidut they use the analogy of going through the earth, which is very physical, of course. It's dirt, to get something that's very pure, Mayim Chaim, living water, well water that is flowing, a river or something trickles into it, and it's the highest form of purity. By the way, if you go into the ocean, you can still have a certain level of purity. There are some things that if you have contact with a dead body, for example, that won't work. However, most things it will. If you go in, if you're on the Sabbath and you're living by the ocean, you go into the ocean before the Sabbath starts. You're looking good, right? There's a certain level of purity there that some people partake of. But we see an interesting thing of this working the land, working the earth, digging and putting great effort into it. It's and the ultimate purpose is to find purity. And the analogy is given that what we do, they say that if yagata matzata ta'amin, if you really, really worked hard on something and you found it, then you can believe that it was meant to be. We see this in all of our endeavors in humanity, whether it's learning Torah, whether it's at work, whether it's trying to provide a living for a family. It requires a lot of work. And in the end, when we're successful, we find this "quote unquote" living water. This concept of having done a good job, having gone through the materiality of the materialist nature of everything we need to do. When Adam and Eve were created, the whole idea was for them to live forever and to not do anything except study Torah or learn the Torah once it would be given. Actually, it says that Adam did know the Torah. So he didn't have to do much. He just had to stay away from that doggone tree, which, sure enough, a lot of unpleasant things have happened due to that tree and the lack of discipline on their part. So this idea of working hard on something, going through dirt, going through the material aspects of our lives, to ultimately to find spirituality. Learning, for example, learning Torah, learning the liturgy, learning the language, learning different aspects of Judaic law. All these things are leading toward finding something eternal, something a little bit more long-lasting than just the earth, for example, which is material. And that's one of the things that is talked about in the spiritual works of the Zohar and other works. So that's something that's an interesting thing. Now, we talked about this idea of, I don't know if we mentioned it before, but it says that Yitzhak married Rivka when he was 40. Now, people that have been reading the Torah know that you're supposed to be married by the time you're 20. Does anybody do that anymore? Quite a few people do. Many don't. One of the reasons is it's an amazing thing that we learn in the Shema HaKadosh, a very big Kabbalist that is very close in his works and his messages toward some of the Chabad rabbis. He mentions that, as we know, when when Eve was created, God took a bone from his ribs and gave it to Eve. So it's an interesting thing that they point out here that in order to be a man has to seek out and search his mate, right? A woman, on the other hand, does not have to do that. A lot of people are surprised about that. A man is called kovesh. He is a seeker. He is out there, actively pursuing to find who he can marry, who he can have as his mate. Woman does not have that mitzvah. A man does. It's called be fruitful and multiply, right? The first mitzvah in the Torah after the great flood. But it's interesting that, and the reason that Yitzhak didn't do this when he was 20, we're told that he didn't have it wasn't the right match. How does he know which is the right match? Well, he's a tzaddik, right? He's a righteous man. He knows which is which. And that therefore, for the man, it's as though his rib is still missing to this day. It's it's an allusion to that primordial type of thing that Adam, the first man on earth, had to give up one of his ribs. So in order for the man and the woman to be of one flesh, right, the man needs to find that other rib, and the other rib is symbolically his mate. So that's something a little bit interesting that we find here. And interestingly enough, too, just like we said, at 20, a man should have already found his mate. Now, we can talk about this at great length. A lot of people are getting married later in life. They're pursuing a career, this and that. And everybody's got their own reasons, their own circumstances. Nobody questions that. It's certainly legitimate in most cases. I know that my daughters, for example, got married even when they were less than 20. And it's a completely different world than the world that we, the older people, my generation, have known previously. It works out. It really does work out. Nothing's perfect in life. There's people that have issues. They have to remarry. There's all kinds of things going on. But by and large, if you've never had the experience of the modern culture, without going into details, and you have no idea what that's about, you're not missing anything. So, the person that's hearing me say these things can just imagine what I'm talking about. So therefore, when you're 20, it's also mitzvah to go to war. And therefore, we have this idea of conquering, of finding, seeking, being proactive, which is the role of the man, to find this amazing odyssey in which he needs to find his mate. Comparing that with going to war, in other words, the idea of being proactive in that regard. When Isaac gave the blessing to both of his sons, there was a little bit of shenanigans going on there. There was definitely trickery. And some people think they make light of it and think, well, who says that Yaakov is the blessed one? He actually tricked his brother, right? And even tricked his father. Esav, we know, was a hairy individual, and the name Esav comes from that. He's already like ready with hair, all that sort of thing, even when he was born. And so he tricked his father, or I should say, Yaakov tricked his father and getting the firstborn blessing, right? And when Yitzhak was giving them the blessing, he was blind at that time, couldn't see. And so he had to feel both Isaac and Jacob, see who's who. Isaac, of course, Yaakov, of course, would be not a hairy person, whereas Esav was. And when he felt the hair on Jacob, of course, tricked him using using a furry, some sort of a furry garment. And it's interesting what Yitzhak says when he says, give the blessing to Esau. He says, V'yitenecha mishmanei haaretz. God will give you from the fats of the land. Just give it to you. Whereas when he gives the same blessing to Yaakov, to Jacob, he adds, V'yitenecha Elokim, meaning a name of God, and he, just excuse me one second here. Elokim has the aspect of deen, of severity. If you're deserving, you'll get the blessing on the land. Meaning there'll be rain, there'll be productivity in the agriculture, and indeed in Israel is there's no rivers around there. Well, you have the Jordan River, but basically Israel is dependent upon rain, and the rain comes through the blessings of God. And in this case, we see that the blessing to Jacob is with the word Elokim in it, indicating severity, judgment, right? If people are worthy, if they're doing the right thing, if everything is good in the land, there's justice and righteousness is prevailing, then there'll be enough rain. Whereas with Esau, Rashi, the commentator in the Torah, gives us an interesting insight into the thinking. Esau could care less about those things. All he wants is that the fats of the land be available when he needs them. And Rashi mentions that the non-Jew will not understand the humility involved, the nuance here of being humble, being thankful, doing what we need to do as Jews in order that we have rain, that we have productivity, that we have a fruitful, year. Interesting how that works. Let's see, what other things we want to talk about? Interesting that the parsha in the end talks about how Esau wanted to kill Jacob for the trickery, as it were, and we see that it's an interesting thing also that how do you judge somebody? How do you judge the character of somebody? The Torah says there's three interesting ways of doing it. It's called koso, kiso, vakaso. Kos meaning a goblet where wine goes in. Kis is money, your wallet, and kaso is anger. And when there's a story that some of the sages say that when a Jew gets drunk, right, he says l'chaim. When a non-Jew gets drunk, he says al charbecha tichyeh. You'll live by your sword, meaning murder, all kinds of mayhem. And this is exactly how it was. Esav was going to kill his brother, right, for these other things. That's basically our parsha. And I hope everybody got some insights here. We can see that things that are happening in Israel are absolutely totally relevant to what we study, what we talk about. And the idea that Rabbi Kahana once mentioned, that this idea we talked about at the beginning of true peace. And without, the Torah talks about peace. When going to war, when you go to war against your enemy, we talked about that last week. And there has to be a consciousness among Jewish leadership. If there isn't, we're really in bad shape. Consciousness that the people that tried to kill us October 7th, they're still there. They're not going anywhere. There may have been 90% of them may have been eliminated, but they're still there. The infrastructure's still there. Even if everything's in ruins, they're still there. They're not going to give up. And with the help of God, we will witness a change in attitude, change in, in policies that will reflect what we've learned from the Torah, from everything we've seen throughout history, throughout Jewish history, and history in general. So hopefully that will take place. It's Rabbi Kahana once said that when Jacob came into Shechem is Nablus, the Arab city. One of the leaders there decided that Dinah, one of Yaakov's daughters, was somebody who he really wanted. Now, these were Arabs; they're Gentiles; they're not Jews. She was basically kidnapped by him and abused and all that sort of thing by him. When two of her brothers, Shimon and Levi, found out about it, they were extremely agitated to the point where they killed everybody in Shechem. Everybody. Why would they kill everybody, even children and whatnot? Well, when you do something like that to somebody, there's got to be a court system. You don't just rape somebody and get away with it. One of the protocols of the people that left the ark, right, Noah's ark, it was called the Noahide laws, right? And the entire world was given those laws. One of them, there's only seven laws. We have 613. Everybody else has 7. One of them is to not kill, not murder, and to establish courts for justice. They didn't do that, so they were guilty of that. Rabbi Kahana used to mention that often. Now, this is just one girl. She wasn't murdered, but she was abused, right? And when you think about what Shimon and Levi did as a reaction to what was done to their sister, we have to really think clearly about how things are in Israel with us. How these people got away with murdering and raping over 1,200 Jewish people, men, women, and children. And has there been any justice? I don't know. Everybody has to figure it out on their own. Anyway, on that wonderful note, Thanksgiving is upon us. Each one of us, in our own way, needs to give thanks to God for all the abundance that we have and the tremendous opportunities, and to really think about it. And this year, hopefully, we'll see wonderful miracles like we've never seen before in the land of Israel and in our own lives and our own families. God bless everybody. Have a very happy Shabbat, and we'll see you next time.